The wind tore across the frozen plains like a wild beast, howling through the skeletal trees, and whipping up clouds of drifting snow that blurred the horizon. The sky hung heavy with low, leaden clouds, promising even colder nights ahead. The world was a stark white wilderness, unforgiving and raw, where every breath tasted of ice and every step threatened to sink into frozen depths. In the midst of this vast, frozen expanse stood a lone cabin, its weathered logs groaning beneath a thick coat of snow. Smoke curled from the stone chimney, a fragile promise of warmth against the endless cold. Outside, a man moved with practiced ease despite the biting wind. His coat, thick and worn, flapped against his lean frame as he checked the fence lines, his boots crunching in the crusted snow. The cowboy was a fixture of the land, strong, silent, and hardened by years of solitude and winter's merciless grip. His eyes, sharp and steady, scanned the horizon with the quiet vigilance of a man who knew this land held no mercy. Yet beneath his rugged exterior lay a guarded heart, one that had learned to keep its distance from the world, to survive on its own terms. Winter was a companion in that solitude, its cold comfort both a challenge and a shield. Far off, a shadow moved against the swirling snow, a figure struggling forward with slow, measured steps. A woman, her face, framed by a threadbare shawl, was pale and drawn, eyes wide with exhaustion and quiet desperation. She pulled a small, battered wagon behind her, the wheels sinking deep into the snowdrifts. The harsh wind stole her breath, but she pressed on, each step a battle against the biting cold. She stopped for a moment, her breath visible in the frigid air, and whispered hoarsely, "Papa's gone." The words were barely more than a ghost on the wind, but they carried a weight heavier than the snow-covered sky. Alone now, with only the harsh frontier to shelter her, she searched for a place to rest, to survive the relentless winter. The cowboy noticed her then, an unexpected presence in his frozen world. His hand instinctively moved toward the rifle by his side, but something in her gaze held him back. There was a fragility beneath her strength, a silent plea beneath the cold. He called out, voice rough but steady, "You need shelter. Come with me." Her eyes met his, a flicker of hope piercing through the storm. And so, beneath the bleak winter sky, two solitary souls began a journey that neither expected, a journey of trust, resilience, and the slow, warming power of love amid the coldest season. The blizzard hit without warning, fierce and sudden, turning the world into a swirling chaos of white. The woman gripped the reins tighter, her knuckles white beneath her thin gloves as the wind ripped at her shawl and the wagon's canvas cover flapped wildly. The cold gnawed at her fingers and cheeks, biting deep enough to numb. But she pushed forward, one foot, then the next, each step a battle for survival. The cowboy spotted her just as the storm swallowed the landscape. He could barely make out the outline of the small wagon trudging through the snow, the figure leaning against the wind like a lone sentinel. His instincts kicked in. This land was merciless, and no one should face the winter alone. He moved quickly, his boots pounding a steady rhythm as he crossed the snow-covered ground toward her. "Hold on," he called, voice firm over the howl of the wind. She looked up, eyes wide and wet with cold and fear. "Please, my papa's gone," she said, voice trembling. "I don't know where to go." Without hesitation, the cowboy lifted the wagon's frozen canvas flap and helped her climb down. The cold was brutal, but there was no time to waste. "My cabin's close. It's small but warm. Come with me." They moved together through the blinding snow, the cowboy steadying her as her legs threatened to give out. When they finally reached the cabin, the warmth from the chimney's smoke was a fragile beacon in the frozen night. Inside, the cabin was small but sturdy, walls of rough-hewn logs, a stone fireplace roaring with life. The firelight flickered against simple furnishings, a wooden table, a couple of chairs, a bed stacked with thick blankets. The scent of pine and smoke wrapped around them, a fragile shield from the storm outside. The woman sank to her knees near the fire, rubbing her hands together, grateful beyond words. The cowboy unhitched his coat, revealing a weathered shirt and calloused hands that told of years spent wrestling with the land. He set down a tin cup of steaming broth and watched her carefully. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice hoarse but filled with relief. He nodded, eyes cautious. "You're safe here. For now." Outside, The storm raged, but inside the cabin, the fire's warmth began to thaw more than frozen skin. It began to melt away the walls between two strangers, forced together by winter's harsh hand. The woman's story came out in quiet fragments. Her papa had been her anchor, and now he was gone, leaving her adrift in a world where the cold wasn't the only danger. The cowboy listened, silent but present, the guarded edge in his eyes softening with each word. Neither spoke much about the future. For now, survival was enough. But beneath the flickering firelight, a fragile bond took root. Two souls bound by necessity, slowly beginning to trust that even in the harshest winter, warmth could be found. The days that followed were a testament to endurance, where every task was a struggle against the cold, and every breath a reminder of the unforgiving land. Outside, the storm continued its relentless assault. Snow piled high against the cabin walls, icicles hanging like frozen daggers from the eaves, and the wind's mournful whistle threading through the cracks in the logs. Inside, the fire crackled and sputtered, a stubborn heart beating against the winter's chill. The woman and the cowboy fell into a rhythm born of necessity, their worlds slowly weaving together beneath the heavy weight of snow and silence. Mornings began with the harsh chore of breaking ice from a frozen creek, their hands raw and red from the biting cold. The cowboy demonstrated how to strike the brittle surface just right, sending shards of ice scattering before carefully collecting the water beneath. "Slow and steady," he said gruffly, watching her with a flicker of pride when she managed a clean break. She smiled, a rare warmth in her eyes. "You make it look easy." He shrugged, but there was no denying the softening in his gaze. Winter doesn't care if it's easy or not. What had to be chopped and stacked high to keep the fire alive through endless nights. The woman learned to handle the axe, her arms aching but determined. The cowboy showed her which pieces to choose, dry, sturdy logs that would burn bright and long. Their days were filled with small victories, mending the broken wagon wheel, patching the torn canvas, gathering frozen kindling from the sparse woods nearby. In the evenings, the cabin grew quieter, save for the crackling fire and the occasional creak of settling logs. They shared simple meals, salt pork, hard bread softened in broth, and the woman's soft humming as she patched his worn gloves. Slowly, the walls between them came down. She spoke of her papa's kindness, his steady hands, and the stories he used to tell by the firelight. The cowboy, in turn, shared fragments of his past. A lost love, a life hardened by loneliness, a land that demanded silence. There were moments when their eyes met, lingering just a heartbeat longer than before, the weight of unspoken feelings hanging in the smoke-filled air. One cold evening, as snow fell in thick, silent sheets outside, the woman looked up from her sewing and caught the cowboy watching her by the fire. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "for letting me stay, for trusting me." He hesitated, then nodded. "We both need each other. Winter doesn't forgive mistakes." And in that moment, surrounded by the harsh beauty of the frozen wilderness, trust began to bloom, fragile but real, a quiet promise that they might survive this winter together, not just in body, but in heart. The cold tightened its grip like a merciless fist, squeezing every ounce of strength from the land and from them. Nights grew longer, darker, and the cabin felt smaller, the walls closing in under the weight of unspoken fears. One evening, as the wind howled outside like a pack of wolves, the fire sputtered dangerously low. The logs had burned down to embers, and the cold crept through the cracks, chilling the bones. The woman sat huddled near the hearth, her cheeks flushed with fever. The harsh cough rattling in her chest betrayed the sickness she tried to hide. Her hands trembled as she wrapped a threadbare blanket tighter around her shoulders. The cowboy noticed immediately, his worry cutting through his usual stoicism. He fetched a small tin cup and filled it with bitter tea, the warmth of fragile comfort against the cold. "You should rest," he said, his voice rough but gentle. "I'm fine," she insisted, but her voice cracked. Outside, the wagon's broken wheel lay half buried beneath snowdrifts. The relentless storm had made repair impossible for days, and the rations were running low. The weight of survival pressed on them, heavier than the snow. Tension flickered between them like a fragile flame threatened by icy gusts. The cowboy, so used to solitude, wrestled with the instinct to pull away, afraid that opening his heart meant inviting pain and loss. The woman, fighting her own fears, bristled at his silence. "You don't have to carry it all alone," she said one night, frustration and fear threading her voice. "We're in this together." He looked away, shoulders stiff. "I'm not good at this," he muttered, letting someone in. Her eyes softened, but the ache of loneliness lingered. "Neither am I, but we don't have to be alone." That same night, the distant howl of wolves echoed through the frozen trees, a chilling reminder that danger lurked not just outside, but within the fragile walls of their trust. The next morning, with the woman still weak, the cowboy braved the frozen river crossing alone, the ice cracking ominously beneath his boots. He returned with supplies and a sense of quiet relief, but the day's trials had etched deeper lines of worry on his face. As the storm eased, a fragile truce formed, not just with the winter's harshness, but between them. They were no longer two isolated souls struggling the cold, but two hearts beginning to beat together, forged by hardship, tested by fear. And though the winter still held many cruel days ahead, something had shifted beneath the ice, a fragile hope that love might yet bloom in the coldest season. The night sky stretched vast and clear above the cabin, stars glittering cold and distant through the window's frost. Inside, the fire crackled, its warmth chasing shadows from the rough wooden walls. Outside, the wind had softened to a gentle whisper, and for the first time in weeks, the cold seemed less like an enemy and more like a silent witness to the fragile bond growing inside. The woman sat close to the fire, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup, eyes reflecting the flickering flames. The cowboy leaned against the doorframe, watching her with a guarded tenderness he was still learning to show. "I never thought I'd see spring again," she said softly, voice thick with the weight of months spent fighting despair. He stepped forward, settling beside her on the worn bench. "Winter changes a man, but maybe it can change more than that." She looked up at him, searching his face with a man beneath the rough exterior, a man who had lived too long in silence, hiding pain beneath layers of solitude. "I'm scared," she admitted, the words a fragile confession, scared of losing everything again. He reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face, his touch gentle and sure. "You won't lose me. Not now. Not ever." For a long moment, they sat in silence, the crackle of the fire filling the space between words. Then, as if the winter itself held its breath, the cowboy reached for her hand, their fingers intertwined, a simple gesture heavy with meaning, a promise born of hardship and hope. Her smile was tentative, but real. "I never thought I could feel this safe again." He pulled her close, the warmth of their bodies a shield against the lingering cold. "You're not alone anymore," he whispered. Their lips met in a slow, tender kiss, the years of loneliness and fear melting away like snow beneath the spring sun. In that moment, love blossomed, not as a grand gesture, but as a quiet, steady flame that would carry them through whatever storms remained. Outside, the stars blinked silently, and the winter night held its peace. The first rays of dawn spilled softly over the horizon, melting the snowdrifts inch by inch and painting the world in pale gold. The icy grip of winter loosened, replaced by a quiet warmth that seeped into the frozen earth, awakening life that had lain dormant beneath the snow. Outside the cabin, the air smelled of fresh pine and thawing earth, a promise of new beginnings. Inside, the cowboy and the woman stood side by side, gazing out over the land that had tested them both. The snow was retreating, revealing patches of brown grass and budding branches, and with it, a sense of hope blossomed within their hearts. The woman wrapped her arm around the cowboy's waist, leaning into his solid frame. "We made it," she said softly, her breath misting in the cool morning air. He smiled, eyes warm and steady. Together, the hardships of the past months, the biting cold, the isolation, the fear, felt distant now, tempered by the strength they'd found in each other. Their journey had been forged in ice and fire, but it was love that had carried them through, a steady flame that refused to be extinguished. As the sun climbed higher, casting light across the thawing landscape, they stepped outside, hands entwined, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The frontier was still wild and untamed, but no longer lonely, because now they had each other, and that was all the warmth they would ever need.